Oh, look at that. That's a nice fit. Hi, I'm Paul Brodie. We're in my shop here. Mitch behind the camera. As you can see, Aermacchi all around me right now. We're going to start working on the motor. We have to shim the transmission. And I know the first time I shimmed the transmission, that took me a very, very long time. So hopefully from what I show you, if you have to do this, it'll make your job a little bit easier. So the 5-speed was available in the 73, 74 models. That was the electric start model. And if you want to put it into another case, which is what I like to do, you need a 71 or a 72 case. It will not fit into the 69 or the 70 because the shaft is smaller and the bearings are smaller. It's a no-go. It doesn't work. So this is a 72 case. How do you tell? Right here, see it says H2 at the end? It's the 2. That tells you that it's 1972. So there's HO, H1, 2, 3, 4 up through the years. And these cases on the 71 and the 72, they also have an inspection cap here because there's a timing mark down on the flywheel, and I've never ever used it, but that's an easy way to tell if it's a 71 or a 72. So we're going to look at the actual transmissions now. On my bench now, I've got a 4-speed transmission here and I got a 5-speed. So what the difference is, obviously there's one more gear, but on the 4-speed, it has 2 shifter forks. And the 5-speed has 1, 2, 3 shifter forks. So if you're getting the transmission, you've got to get the shifter drum, and you've got to get all of the shifter forks as well. It comes as a package. Don't just buy the transmission if you want to go to 5-speed. And you also need these little pins to hold it. And there's the cotter pins as well. And these are an odd size. So if you don't have the cotter pins, it's hard to find. It's a metric size. So that's how that works. That locks it in there. It was back in 1999 that I first installed the 5-speed into a 4-speed, and I did the shimming. And that was very, very time consuming because I didn't have extra shims. What I have now, I mean, I've kind of gone overboard. I got all sorts of shims now. And so what I was doing back in 1999 was I had extra motors upstairs. I had about 5 or 6 extra motors. So I'd get to a stage where I needed a certain shim and I didn't have any shim, and to order it would take a week or 2. So I'd go upstairs, I'd grab a motor, I'd take it apart, look at the shims and see if I had the right shim. So if you are doing this, a conversion, you're going to need shims. And I'm not sure the best way because you don't know what shim you want. I got these off of Leslie. He used to be in California. That was Moto Italia. And I knew he was moving, so I bought a whole bunch of his shims. Well, he's on the East Coast, and I think he still has shims. So if you need his email, I can help you out with that. So that's the shims, lots of shims. I want to talk about the shifter quadrant. That's what I call this. It's got another name in the parts book, but this is basically what shifts the shifter drum and allows you to change gears. So what I've done is I've modified this. Do you see how this part, this is the stop. This is larger, and I got a drawing. This goes in here. So this is the stock one. You can see how it goes in there, and each of the ends of the hole in the casing, that is the stop. So you see how it's only got so much movement there. But when you go from the 4-speed to the 5-speed, you need a little less movement because otherwise it throws it a little too far. So that's why this is a little bit larger, not that much larger, and then it still operates exactly the same way. So that is going to allow the 5-speed to work properly and not overshift a little bit. Here before me, I've got the close ratio conversion. Now, I get this out of Germany, off of Rudolph. He could still be in business, but I'm not sure about that anymore. So what this does, it's the final gears on the transmission, and it changes the final ratio. And because it changes the final ratio, he tells me that it also helps to make it more of a close ratio transmission. So what the conversion is basically it's these two gears. And here's the stock gears. So if you look at this, can you see how this is a little bit smaller? This is one tooth less, and this here is one tooth more. Actually, it's this one here. Yeah, this is stock. So this is one tooth more. So one tooth less, one tooth more, and it changes the ratio. And I was looking at this last night. Can you see all the wear? I've owned this since new, so either the heat treating was off a little bit, or I had the throttle open full. So this is the final gear. This is fifth gear, and look at the wear. On the other side, it's fine. That's what it's supposed to look like. Looks nice, but this side is definitely, there's another one worn, and you can see a little bit more wear right there. So this is a press fit. This is supposed to be a press fit, and it goes on like so. But you can see that that's not a press fit anymore. So how I used to take off the stock gear and put on the other gear is I made up these. This would go into the arbor press. It's all coming apart. And I would put that like that. I would support it with some blocks, and then I would press down, and that would separate this gear from the shaft. So that's what I did. So last night I saw that this gear is in really bad shape. So luckily I went over to my spares department, and look, I got a brand new set here. So very nice. So we're going to be using this 5-speed, not that 5-speed. So obviously I have to check all the shimming. And something else I did, I changed this bearing here, because this one had some rough spots in it. So I pressed it out. I took out the holder, got the new one in. So I changed bearings as well. So that's another reason that the transmission is going to get shimmed. In the transmission, you have the bearings, and then you have the shafts. And what happens is that sometimes, often on the stock, it's a little bit of a press fit. So when you're taking apart the cases and you're checking the end play, it becomes a little bit of a pain. So what I like to do, I like to sand down the shaft a little bit so that it's. So what should happen, what I like it to happen is that this, when you put it in there and you tap it lightly, it should go in. If you have to tap it quite hard, that makes it a lot harder to do all the shimming, because this comes apart on a pretty regular basis when you're checking the shim and the end play and things like that. So we're going to go over to the lathe, and I'm going to take a little bit off this shaft. I'll show you what I do. I've got 180 grit paper here, and I've got a flat file, a smooth file. So what I'm going to do is this is the part that I'm going to sand down very, very lightly. So when it spins around, that's basically what I'm going to do. I need this to be just a little bit smaller. Here we go. Okay, so let's see what happens here. Okay, so that went in there. That was, I think I'm going to sand it once more, and then that's it. That was pretty good, but it doesn't have to be quite that tight. Okay, we're going to start doing shimming pretty soon. I know you've been wondering when this is all going to start, but it will. So that's done. Now we have to check this guy here. Oh, look at that. That's a nice fit. So inside the motor here, inside the transmission, we have two shafts. We have the long shaft. This is called the main shaft, and this is called the counter shaft. So the first thing we're going to do is to set up the two cases. We're going to put the gasket in between because you need to have the gasket to set the end play. And then we're going to measure the end play on the counter shaft. And it should be between 4 and 8 thou. When there's a tolerance like that, I've been instructed to always go for the larger value. So we're going to try and get it to the 8 thou. That's what we want. Okay, so this is the counter shaft going in. Here's the gasket. And one thing I like about Aermacchi, see how wide that is? It's a very wide surface, so you don't often get oil leaks on an Aermacchi. Not like possibly an English motorcycle. Here we go. So I line up the gaskets a little bit. So all you need is 6mm Allen screw and a nut. And I put one here and I put one over here. And that's enough to hold it and to anchor it. To hold it together, and then I can measure the end play. I've got some cold rolled flat bar, 1/2 inch, doesn't really matter. What this is going to do is to hold the dial indicator, and then we can measure the end play. What's going to help me here is this. I've got a drift, it's just brass. I can tap the shaft down, and then I have to reach in, use the screwdriver, and lift up the gear. That's going to tell me what the end play is. So it appears the shaft is all the way down. So we're going to set this to 0. And let's see what I can do in here. So what is that? That's about 1 thou end play. Not very much at all. Okay, so we're looking for 8 thou. Okay, so now it comes apart again. So that's our baseline, I guess you'd call it. So I took out that little shim. I don't need that shim at all. Here's my gold mine of shims. And okay, so I've got some marked here. These are the counter shaft. This is the counter shaft. The long shaft is the main shaft. So that was 38. So we're looking for 32 or something like that. And sometimes you can use a couple shims. So we get a 14. 14 and a 16, that's going to add up to 30. There we go. So let's try that. That's a good place to start. A little bit of oil helps it to hold. So we're taking out about 7 or 8 thou. So we're going to see how this works. We're on 0. Eight thou. Okay, we're good. So there's 4 things we have to check, and 3 of them are shimming. So we've done 1. We've done 1 now. What I got in my hand is the shifter drum. So I'm going to install the shifter drum into the casing here, and then we can put in the transmission and the shifter forks, and then we do an eyeball of the spacing. That's the next step. So a little bit of oil here just to give it a little bit of lube to go in. Okay, so this goes into a bronze bushing. There's your bronze bushing. And I might have to slack off the detent. Okay, this is the detent inside. Can you see that? That's what holds it into gear. That goes into each of those notches. So there's first, neutral, second, third, fourth, and fifth. So it's a little hard to slide that in. So I'm going to back this off and allow myself a little room there. So that's what it looks inside. That's called the shifter detent spring. No big surprise there. Yeah, the shim goes under the circlip. So we've got a shim that goes underneath this. You have to be careful with these. They like to fly off sometimes, so you could lose an eye if you're not careful, so you have to be careful. So this is a tricky bit here, assembling this. You have to put all these gears in and the shifter forks, and they all got to go in at the same time. Oh, look at that. Okay, so the counter shaft went in, so it's the main shaft. And if we didn't do the sanding, this would be very hard to put together because you're almost like you have to press it in. So that's why I did the sanding. Okay, so we've got it installed into the right case, and the shifting forks, they're loose. There we go. We have to put it into neutral now, so I'll show you how we do that. There's first, neutral, second, third, fourth, fifth. So it's easy to tell where first, neutral, and second are because they're really close together. See how fourth and fifth are quite wide? Hard to mix it up. Okay, one thing we're going to do now is to put in these pins. These are the pins that go into the shifter drum through the shifter fork, and that's how you get the gears. This one's a bit sticky for some reason, so there we go. Okay, see that? Now at this stage we don't have to put the cotter pins in. That's not necessary right now for this. Okay, that one's in, and there's a third one at the back. Oops. Okay, and that one's in too. We have to make sure those don't fall out. Okay, the next thing we're working on here is the shifter cam spacing. So everything's installed, and what I want you to see here, there's a space, and then you see in between here, we don't have a space. It's basically the same. So when we come down here, if I take a feeler gauge, this is about, I've got a few here, it adds up to 50 thou. So it goes in there. So what we need to do is to put a shim under here so it raises up this whole cluster, and this gear gets, actually all the gears move a little bit, and it gets closer. So we're going to go for half of 50 thou, maybe 25 thou shim on the bottom. We have to try that. So this is the fun and games of shimming. You put it together, you take it apart, change the shim, then you try it again. So we're going to take it apart. Oh, okay. Main shaft shims. Let's see what we got here. So we're looking for maybe 25 thou shim. 8, 12, and 13. Okay, but I can also look in my box to see if it would be nice to have one shim and not two skinny ones. So I'm going to look in my box. Look, there's a 25 right there. First one I pick out. Nice. That's where the shim goes. It's going right there. So now it all goes back together again. Okay, see the space there? And then, so we don't have the same space here. So I was kind of wondering about that. I think I need to go for the thicker shim. So it's clearing. There's no, see, it's not touching, but it's not in the middle. There we go. Okay, so we're looking. That's where we leave it. So you see here, got basically the same space between this shifted dog and those dogs there. I'm leaving that now. We've had it apart, what, 5 times? 5 times had that apart, changing shims. So we're at 54 thou. That's how big the shim is. I was telling Mitch, the first time I shimmed the transmission, it took me 3 days, but then I was taking apart motors to try and find shims, but 3 days to shim a transmission. I am a little faster now. What we're checking now is the shifter cam end play. And you check it on the right side of the motor, and you shim it on the left. You have to put on the plate once again. And the end play, I believe, is also 4 to 8 thou, and it's good to shim it on the loose side. We're on 0, and we've got, so we're looking from 4 to 8, and we got 5. I can live with that. Okay, so that's the shifter cam end play, and that turned out quite well. So the last thing, there is one more thing. The last thing we're checking is the sprocket gear, and it needs an end play of 8 to 10 thou. So we've got the dial indicator on there. It's a little crooked, but that'll be okay. And then what we're going to do is to lift it up. Show you how. A couple screwdrivers. So we're at 0 now. Oh, look at that, eh? What did that end up at? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 thou. So we need a shim. We need a 50 thou shim in there. So this is the last step. So that's good. So 50 thou shim. Got a 24. We got to do mix and match. $103. Got 103 there. So let's try that. Okay, we're at 0. We'll give it a tap. Make sure we're seated. Okay. And we're looking for 8 to 10 thou. Okay. Oh. Well, is that making any sense? We're still at 60. So we just added 50 thou. That doesn't make any sense to me. So
did you put in the little shim too?
No, I increased it up to 102. It was at 52. So we still need to add 50 thou, another 50 thou. That's okay. Well, I can't explain everything. I just cannot. We're going to go for the 25. Let's try once again. Okay, so we're at 6. Okay, so I know what to do here. We're not going to do that once again for the camera, but I'm going to do it for the motor, for my satisfaction. Thank you very much for watching this Aermacchi 5-speed conversion. Mitch and I like coffees. If you buy us some coffees, we appreciate that very much. I'm done chemo. 5 months is done. Next is my stem cell transplant, February. So that's the news. Have a great day. Take care.